Everyone's talking about automating with AI, and there are two sides of the spectrum. Those who are too far, meaning they fully outsource, and those who are not far enough, meaning they still do most of the work manually. But there's actually a middle ground that works. And in this video, I'm going to show you what that looks like in practice. I definitely leverage AI to be more efficient and productive, but I designed curriculums and learning experiences. So most of my work requires creative and strategic thinking. That said, I don't want to fully outsource my thinking to AI because just like any other skill, you're going to lose it if you don't use it. And I don't want to lose my thinking skills. Second, based on experience, and I've tried a lot of different approaches and a lot of different tools, AI's ability to design learning experiences isn't there yet. I mean, it can definitely create course content, it can help structure the lessons, but it still makes mistakes and it still needs guidance and feedback, at least for now. That said, I prefer to be the orchestrator. I want to delegate the doing so I can focus on the strategic thinking. Now, let me show you how I think through what I call AI delegation. One of my clients owns a course creation agency, and I handle the course design part of the process. My recurring deliverable for every course project are the lesson plans and scripts for the entire course. And I usually build it from the ground up because in order to do that, there's a bunch of different things that I have to understand or map out. I'd have to listen to client calls, go through the notes about the course content so that I can get enough context for the lesson. I also have to map out the curriculum so there's logical progression across different modules. So I have a system or workflow in place for this entire process. And I also have a framework for curriculum development and lesson structure. But the whole thing still usually takes a whole day on average. So I started asking myself, what would it look like if I could delegate most of the grunt work to AI? Now, whenever I think about AI delegation, I look at it from two lenses. One, is it a repetitive workflow? That's a critical question to ask because if it's something that you've done so many times, chances are you know how it should be done, right? You have a system or an SOP in place, which is important if you're delegating the task to AI. The second question that I ask is there an opportunity to make it more efficient? Are there parts of the process that requires minimal involvement from me? And this task, the one that I told you about, certainly pass on those two parameters. So here's what I did. I built a Claude Skill to help me draft the lesson plans. And that Claude Skill is trained on my curriculum framework, which means that it doesn't generate generic AI outputs. And just to be clear, that skill only drafts the lesson plans. It still has to be reviewed, refined, and approved by me. Now, for those who are not familiar with Claude skills, they are reusable instructions, which is why they're perfect for repetitive tasks. It's a set of instructions saved as a file that Claude can load when it's relevant to what you're working on. So, for example, if you have a brand voice skill, every time you need to write something for your brand, Claude will automatically use the brand voice skill to make sure that what it writes uses your own voice. Think of it like, a specialist training manual that Claude keeps on hand and consults when the right task comes up. Plus, it lives in your Claude account settings and it can be used by Claude Cowork, Claude Chat, or Claude Code. It really is powerful. Now, let me show you the workflow of my course designer skill. I have the course context in a folder. I specify that so when Cowork runs the skill, it will specifically read the files in that client folder. And then it will just follow the workflow that I mapped out and that I train it on. It will start building the lesson plans one lesson at a time, following the instructions that I've specified. And then the next part of the process is where it's going to hand it off to me. I will review every output to ensure that all of the lessons are cohesive. There are no overlaps, no contradicting information, no gaps. And then I would guide it, give it context, direction, and feedback during our brainstorming session. And if you notice, it will go back to refining the lesson plans, hand it off to me, and then I'm going to review it again, give it feedback. If there's still some things that need to be refined, it's going to redo the lesson plans or the scripts, and then it's going to go through this iterative process. Now that you know the workflow, let me show you what it looks like in action. So as you can see, I am in Claude Cowork. When this video is recorded, Cowork is only available if you're using the Claude desktop app, both in Windows and Mac. The first thing I do here is make sure that I specify the folder that I want the Cowork to work on, because I do have different files and folders for my clients. And so I want to make sure that we're working on the right thing. So let me do that right now. The next step is to provide instructions to Cowork. As you can see, I specify the skill that I want Cowork to specifically use. I also specified the file where it's going to get the context for the lesson plan. And then all I have to do is click Let's Go. And as you can see, Cowork is going to start working on the task. And all I have to do right now is to sit back, relax, and wait for it to complete the task for. As you can see in Cowork, you're going to find a bunch of different things on the right panel. So you will be able to see the progress so that you can track the task completion. You're going to see the files that it's working on, and then you're going to also find out what specific skill it's using to complete the task. Okay, it looks like it has completed all of the steps. And so now I need to review the work that it has completed. So let me just briefly skim through this and view the lesson plan to see if there's anything here that stands out. Now, of course, in reality, I'm going to go through this in much more detail, but just for the sake of this demo, let me see if there's anything that stands out that I can provide feedback on. Okay, just give it feedback. Now it's going to start working on the lesson plan or the lesson draft based on the feedback that I've provided it. And then all we got to do is wait and see. Okay, as you can see, it has updated the progress bar here with 2 steps. It looks like it has completed the task based on the feedback that I've given it. So let's take a look. Okay, so it did create a resource, which is awesome. And then it also updated the lesson plan. Let's see. There we go. So you see the resources have been added, which is great. All right, now this back and forth feedback, iterative brainstorming session goes on until I'm happy and satisfied with the lesson plan that we've co-created. And that's actually how this skill works. As you can see, I've not fully automated the whole process, and that is by choice because I want to make sure that I'm still involved in the iteration that comes after the initial drafting of the lessons. I don't want to outsource my strategy and my thinking to AI. The creative strategic layer, I want that to stay with me. Only the repetitive execution layer gets delegated. What makes this work? Having a clear, proven framework. Without the framework, the skill or your AI agent is just going to produce generic output. And we don't want that. Now, my question for you is, what in your work right now is repeatable enough to systematize? Bonus point if you have a framework or process that you execute the same way every time and it works. That is an opportunity for AI delegation. By the way, I'll be releasing a much more detailed video on Claude skills and how you can create one for yourself. So make sure you keep an eye out for that. And if this was useful, make sure to hit subscribe. I publish videos every week on building a solo business using productized IP and AI powered systems. See you in the next video. Ciao.